you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
And let's lay one thing to rest. I may be a practicing Catholic, but I used to go to 7:30 Mass every morning in high school and then in college before I went to the black church. Not a joke. Andy knows this.
There's a place where I was the only white guy that worked as a lifeguard down in that area, the east side. And you know where you can always tell where the best basketball in the state is and the best basketball in the city is. It's where everybody shows up. The three congressmen you have here, two of them look like they really could and did play ball, and the other one looks like he could bomb you.
That's our president of the United States. Adam B. Coleman is here. He's the author of the book Black Victim to Black Victor, founder of Wrong Speak Publishing, and you got to follow him on Substack, adambcoleman.substack.com. Adam, wonderful to see you, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
I'm grateful you're here. What's the problem with identity politics?
Well, where do I start? The problem with identity politics is that it removes the individual. And it also segments people by what their supposed interests are. So me being black, the only thing I'm interested in is prison reform, government subsidies for housing, and making sure that white people treat me nice, are nice to me and bend over backwards for me. It's not possible for me to care about economics like anybody else. It's not possible for me to care about safety, which, by the way, polling has shown the number one concern for Black Americans is safety. And so safety and crime in combination. So this idea that identity politics needs to rule, it really doesn't. And oftentimes it's used as a way to manipulate people, to manipulate a population of people, to levy one against the other. And so that's why I'm not in favor of identity politics. I don't have a problem with discussing race because it is a construct that exists within our society. And there are some things that we should discuss surrounding race, but it shouldn't be the end all be all. I'm a proponent of, having race be some form of identity, but not everything. It's my existence, but it's not my entire existence.
Yep. Your book's called From Victim to Victor. How were you told growing up that you're a victim?
It's not necessarily being told. It's shown by behavior. It's shown by the society we grew up in. It's shown by my surroundings. And as I've gotten older, removing race from it, I started learning more about psychology. And, there is a certain victim aspect that exists within psychology, especially for trauma victims. And one thing we don't tell them to do is to constantly relive that trauma, to constantly harbor back to that resentment. Otherwise, they can't grow and they can't move forward. So I'm applying the same concepts that we would do in psychology to the context of race and how we should move forward. And we shouldn't forget things, right? You're not told to forget the trauma that you experienced, but we shouldn't harbor trauma forward. That's not how you move forward. And we also shouldn't harbor trauma that we didn't personally experience, right? Because all that does is create resentment, and then it becomes some sort of vengefulness that we're being told to take hold of. And so ultimately in the book, I try to tell people that, we have more in common than we do different. And I use my story growing up without my father to highlight that the disconnect from fathers with their children is actually an American issue. It's not just a Black issue. We're disproportionately high, but there are more white people in this country who grew up without their fathers than Blacks.
Yep, universal problem.
Yeah.
So whenever fathers come up, I forget where I read this, I gotta find it, but it was this whole thing about how right after slavery, the lengths that men went to search the South and search the nation for their families, because they were separated when they were slaves. Mm-hmm. It's powerful, it's incredibly moving. And today, a lot of dads know exactly where their kids are, but choose to leave or whatever happened. But it's such a shame, and hasn't been that long.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can talk about, do you have a thought on that? We can talk about fathers all day, but do you have a thought?
No, you're absolutely right. And now we can have fathers who live across the street from their kids and don't see them. And there's not enough shame when it comes to that as well. There needs to be more shame on the end for the fathers. My father, I would classify as deadbeat. He knew exactly where we were. He didn't reach out to us, and he didn't really see us. And the last time I talked to my father, I was 21, and he died a handful of years ago. So, that's how disconnected I was from my father. But at the same time, we need to have some sort of shame for the women who choose these undesirable men to become fathers.
Wow.
So there needs to be a balance between the two. And it's very easy for us to say deadbeat dads, but we don't give any sort of scrutiny to the mothers who get pregnant by these men. We can see these guys from a mile away. They're undesirable men. My father was married. He shouldn't be having kids with another woman, right? That should have told you everything right there for my destiny as a young man. So I think it's important that we're fair, and with fairness, we have to be critical of both sexes.
Wow, so glad you're saying this because no one else is. That's absolutely fantastic. And thanks for watching that clip. This was an amazing special we did about identity politics and inspired by Black History Month. We talked about how we should really be teaching our history. And we touched on so many eternal themes, so many biblical themes, because we're all wrong, right? There's definitely problems in this country, but we're searching for the answers in all the wrong places when it's all in the Bible. And that's what our podcast is about. It's called Politics by Faith, where we take the story of the day that's causing anxiety, like race in America and Tyree Nichols in Memphis and all these stuff that's just causing anxiety and tension and division. And we talk about it from a historical and a biblical perspective and make the anxiety go away. So if you like that last clip, you'll love the podcast. It's anywhere you listen to a podcast called Politics by Faith.